Ambassador Kang Dae-ho walked through the massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber and felt the weight of 1,000 stairs pressing down on him. The chamber stretched out like a great bowl carved from black stone with 12 towering seats arranged in a perfect circle. Each seat was built for a different alien species, and each one looked down at the small human delegation standing in the center. Behind Dae-ho came Chief Engineer Park So-min, her tablet ready to record everything that would happen today. Military. Advisor Lee Tae-woo followed last, his uniform crisp and his face showing no emotion, even as whispers and clicking sounds came from the watching aliens. The humans had traveled 3 months through space to reach this place, and now they stood where no human had ever stood before. The Velthari representative spoke first. Counselor Thekmore was 7 feet tall and looked like a walking tree made of silver metal. His voice came through the translation device as cold and sharp. "So these are the new species that think they belong here," he said, and the sound echoed around the chamber. The humans who barely learned to leave their own star system and now want to join the civilized galaxy. Other counselors made sounds that the translators could not turn into words, but Dae-ho understood they were laughing. The crystalline Zephyrian in the third seat chimed like breaking glass, which meant amusement in their species. The gas cloud, being from SciFiPrime, made a sound like wind through pipes. Even the Cathera hive mind, which rarely showed emotion, buzzed in what could only be mockery. "We welcome humanity to the Galactic Council," Thekmore continued, but his tone made it clear this was not a welcome at all. "As provisional members, you will be given tasks suited to your current level of development. Think of this as a learning experience for your primitive species." A holographic display appeared in the air above the humans. Lists of jobs scrolled past in alien writing before the translator changed them to human words. Waste management for outer rim colonies. Asteroid mining in hazardous zones where other species lost too many workers. Patrol duties in dangerous border areas between warring alien factions. Supply runs to places others considered too risky or too dirty. Park So-min kept writing notes, her face calm even as she read job descriptions that would send human workers into the most dangerous parts of the galaxy. Lee Tae-woo stood perfectly still, but Dae-ho noticed the slight tightening around his eyes as each new assignment appeared on the list. "These tasks will help humanity understand its place in the galactic community," said the Zephyrian counselor. "Velneth." The crystal being's voice sounded like music, but the words were sharp. "Other young species have found great value in starting with simple work." "Simple work," repeated the Nethys representative, Kethnul. The gas being's voice was like a whisper that somehow filled the entire chamber. "Humans are good with simple things, yes? Manual labor? Following orders? This is perfect for a species that only recently discovered fire." More laughter sounds filled the chamber. The Cathara high mind, Zelkar, spoke in the multiple voices of its hive connection. "The data shows humans are violent and uncontrolled. These assignments will keep them busy and away from important matters, like children given toys to play with while adults handle real business." Dae-ho felt heat rise in his chest, but he kept his voice steady. "The human government is grateful for the opportunity to contribute to galactic society. We accept these assignments and will complete them to the best of our ability." "Oh, how polite," said Thekmore, and the silver tree being leaned forward in his massive seat. "But politeness will not help you in the shattered nebula where gravitational storms have destroyed 47 mining vessels in the last century, or in the outer spiral, where the waste processing stations fail so often that 3 species have given up trying to maintain them. Perhaps," added Velneth with crystal chimes that sounded almost musical, "humans will last longer than the Morlaki did. That species was so eager to please when they first joined us. They took similar assignments with such enthusiasm." "What happened to the Morlaki?" Park So-min asked, speaking for the first time. The chamber went quiet for a moment. Then Kethnul's whisper voice answered. "They could not handle the work. Failed at every task. Became a burden on the galaxy. So sad when a species cannot adapt to civilized society." "But do not worry," Zelkar buzzed with all its voices. "Humans show more promise. Your species is known for being stubborn. Perhaps you will not give up as quickly as others." The holographic display changed to show deadlines and quotas. The numbers made Park So-min's eyes widen slightly. Waste processing for 400 worlds. Mining quotas that would require constant work. In the most dangerous space storms. Patrol schedules that would stretch human ships across thousands of light years of contested territory. These requirements seem quite demanding, Dae-ho said carefully. Demanding? Thekmore's metal branches rattled with what might have been laughter. These are the minimum standards. Previous species often exceeded these numbers significantly, but we understand humans may need time to learn proper work habits. The galaxy runs on efficiency, Velneth chimed. Civilized species contribute according to their abilities. Humans will contribute according to theirs. Lee Tae-woo finally spoke, his military training keeping his voice level. Our ships and crews are ready for deployment. When do we begin? Immediately came 12 voices at once from all the counselors. The word echoed around the chamber like a command that could not be questioned. Your species will report progress weekly, Thekmore continued. Any failures or delays must be explained in full. The Council expects complete transparency from provisional members. Complete transparency, agreed Kethnal. Humans must prove they can be trusted with even simple responsibilities before being given anything more important. The session continued for another hour, with details about supply chains, communication protocols, and penalty procedures for missed quotas. Each counselor added their own requirements, their own special conditions that made the work harder. Park So-min filled 12 pages with notes before the humans were finally dismissed. As they walked back through the massive doors, Dae-ho could hear the alien voices behind them growing louder with what could only be celebration. The translators caught fragments of conversation about useful tools and manageable problems and primitive species knowing their place. The three humans said nothing until they reached their shuttle. Only then did Lee Tae-woo speak, his voice tight with controlled anger. They gave us the jobs that kill people. Park So-min nodded, looking at her notes. The casualty rates in these assignments are 10 times higher than normal space work. They expect us to fail or die trying, Dae-ho said quietly. He looked back at the council building, its black stone surface reflecting no light from the alien sun above. They think we are expendable. So what do we do? Lee Tae-woo asked. Dae-ho was quiet for a long moment. Then he straightened his shoulders and looked at his companions. We do the work. We do it better than they expect. And we remember everything they said today. The shuttle lifted off from the council world, carrying the human delegation back, toward their ships and the dangerous assignments waiting for them. Behind them, in the great chamber, 12 alien species continued their celebration, confident they had put the newest members of their community exactly where they belonged. Captain Kim Jin-soo stood on the observation deck of the waste processing station and watched his crew work through another 16-hour shift. The outer spiral was a beautiful place if you could ignore the smell and the constant danger of toxic leaks. 3 suns painted the nearby nebula in colors that had no names, but the beauty was lost on workers who spent their days dealing with the waste of 400 alien worlds. The station was huge, built by the Velthari centuries ago and abandoned when the work became too dangerous for their silver metal bodies to handle. Now humans crawled through maintenance tunnels that other species found too cramped, fixed equipment that others declared unrepairable, and processed waste that other civilizations simply dumped into space and forgot about. Jin-soo checked his daily reports. Quota exceeded by 12%. 0 accidents this week. All equipment running at optimal levels. The same numbers he had been reporting for 6 months now, ever since humanity took over this assignment. His crew had turned what the Council called an impossible task into routine work. In the shattered nebula, Lieutenant Commander Cho Yun-hee guided her mining ship through gravitational storms that twisted space itself into dangerous knots. The nebula had earned its name from the wreckage of 47 alien vessels, their broken hulls spinning in the strange currents that made this place too risky for most species to enter. But humans had studied the patterns. Yun-hee and her pilots learned to read the gravitational flows like weather, diving into the storms when they were weak and pulling back when the space itself began to tear. They found asteroids rich with rare metals that other species could never reach, and they brought them out safely while alien administrators watched their quotas climb beyond anything they had expected. The work was hard, and the hours were long, But Yunhee's crews took pride in succeeding where others had failed. They developed new techniques for reading gravitational distortions and created safety protocols that kept their workers alive in conditions that had killed dozens of alien miners. Their success reports went to the Council every week, but the responses were always the same cold acknowledgments with no praise or recognition. Back on the Council world, Ambassador Kang Dai-ho sat through another session where human achievements were dismissed without discussion. He had submitted detailed reports on improved waste processing techniques that could save other worlds millions in cleanup costs. He had provided data on new mining methods that could open previously impossible asteroid fields to development. He had offered human expertise in patrol strategies that were already reducing piracy in border zones. The response was always silence or condescension. Today, Dr. Bae Hyo-jin had come to present research that could revolutionize medicine across all species. Her team had discovered how to modify human medical techniques to work on alien physiologies, potentially saving millions of lives each year across the galaxy. This research is very interesting for a primitive species, Counselor Thekmore said when Dr. Bae finished her presentation. But advanced medicine requires understanding that takes centuries to develop. Perhaps humans should focus on simpler matters until they gain more experience. The data clearly shows the effectiveness of these techniques, Dr. Bae replied, keeping her voice professional despite the insult. Cross-species medical compatibility has been tested extensively with volunteers from multiple civilizations, tested by humans on primitive equipment, Velneth chimed, her crystal form flickering with what passed for amusement among her people. Civilized species have medical technology that surpasses anything your species can imagine. We appreciate the effort, but there is no need for such crude approaches. The other counselors made their agreement sounds. Buzzing from the Cathara, whispers from the Nethys, clicks and rattles from species that barely acknowledged human existence. Dr. Bae gathered her research papers and left the chamber with quiet dignity, but Daeho could see the frustration in her eyes. The pattern continued for months. Human achievements were ignored or explained away as lucky accidents. When Captain Kim Jin-soo's waste processing stations exceeded quotas by 30% while maintaining perfect safety records, the Council credited favorable conditions in space currents. When Lieutenant Commander Cho Yun-hee's mining operations doubled expected yields while losing 0 ships to gravitational storms, the aliens said the nebula must be experiencing an unusual calm period. But the real insults happened during the informal breaks between council sessions. Park So-min was returning from a supply run when she overheard 2 Cathara workers talking in their rapid click language. The translation came through her earpiece, clearly. The human beasts are useful for heavy lifting, much stronger than they look for such simple creatures. Beasts of burden, agreed the other Cathara. Good for carrying things and following simple orders. The council was wise to give them work that requires no thinking. In the corridor outside the chambers, military advisor Lee Tae-woo listened to a group of Zephyrian officials discussing human patrol efforts. Their crystal voices rang with sharp amusement as they speculated about how long it would take for human crews to crack under the pressure of constant danger. The Morlocki lasted 3 years before they started making fatal mistakes. One crystal, being chimed. Humans might last longer because they breed so quickly. Easy to replace the ones who die. Their ships are so primitive, another added. When they start losing vessels to enemy fire, they will beg to be reassigned to safer work. Then we can give these patrol duties to some other expendable species. The contempt was everywhere. During a medical emergency at a mining station, Dr. Bae Hyo-jin saved the lives of 12 Velthari workers using the same techniques the council had dismissed as crude and worthless. The saved workers thanked her with genuine gratitude, but their supervisors credited the rescue to basic first aid that any species could provide. Colonel Nam Hae-won established efficient supply systems that reduced shipping costs by 40% across the border zones. Her innovations in cargo routing and security protocols eliminated piracy losses that had cost the galaxy billions in trade revenue. The Council's response was to assign humanity additional patrol duties since they seemed to have extra time on their hands. Engineer Yoon Jae-sung developed new extraction techniques that tripled asteroid yields while using half the energy of traditional methods. His innovations could revolutionize mining across the galaxy, but when he submitted his research, the Council filed it under primitive techniques unsuitable for civilized application. Medical Officer Han Soo-jin treated workers of dozens of different species, learning to adapt human medical knowledge to alien physiologies in ways that should have been impossible. Alien patients began requesting human doctors specifically, but their governments continued to insist that human medicine was inferior to their own advanced treatments. The pattern became clear to anyone paying attention. Humanity was not just meeting the impossible quotas set by the Council, they were exceeding them while developing better ways to do the work. They were solving problems that had plagued the galaxy for centuries, creating innovations that saved lives and resources, and building systems that other species had declared impossible to maintain. But every success was dismissed. Every innovation was ignored. Every achievement was credited to luck or favorable conditions rather than human skill and determination. The Council had decided that humans were primitive beasts, suitable only for dangerous labor, and no amount of evidence would change their minds. In quiet moments between shifts, human workers shared stories of the contempt they faced. The alien supervisors who spoke about them like animals, the colleagues who assumed humans could not understand complex instructions, the officials who treated human achievements as happy accidents rather than the result of skill and dedication. But humanity endured. They took the insults and the impossible assignments and the dismissive attitudes, and they turned every challenge into an opportunity to prove their worth. Not because they hoped for recognition or respect, but because the work needed to be done, and they had the ability to do it right. Captain Kim Jin-soo looked at his latest efficiency reports and allowed himself a small smile. His teams had reduced waste processing costs by 60%, while improving safety standards across all 400 worlds in their sector. Tomorrow, he would submit another report that would be filed away without comment. But tonight he knew his people had done something that mattered. Across the galaxy, other humans were having the same quiet satisfaction. They were building something important in the shadows of alien contempt, creating a foundation of competence and reliability that held the galaxy together in ways the Council was too proud to admit. They did not know it yet, but they were also building the infrastructure of their own independence. Intelligence analyst. Oh Min-seo stared at the data streams flowing across her screens and felt her understanding of the galaxy shift completely. For 8 months, she had been processing routine information from humanity's assigned sectors, tracking supply routes and monitoring work efficiency. But tonight, as she ran correlation algorithms on the complete dataset, a pattern emerged that changed everything. The waste processing stations humanity managed were not just random facilities in forgotten corners of space. They were the critical nodes that prevented ecological collapse across 400 worlds, including the home systems of 6 Council species. The toxic waste from industrial worlds, the radioactive byproducts of energy generation, the biological contamination from medical facilities, all of it flowed through systems that humans now controlled completely. Min-seo pulled up another data stream and watched mining reports scroll past. The asteroids her people extracted from the shattered nebula contained rare elements that were absolutely essential for faster-than-light travel. Without the metals from those dangerous mining operations, every ship in the galaxy would be stranded at sublight speeds. The entire galactic economy depended on materials that only humans were brave enough or skilled enough to extract. She expanded her analysis to include patrol routes and supply chains. The border zones where human ships maintained security were not empty buffer areas. They contained the most important trade routes in known space. Commerce between major civilizations flowed through systems that humans now defended. The simple patrol duties were actually the backbone of galactic transportation. Min-seo worked through the night, her coffee growing cold as she uncovered the true scope of humanity's integration into galactic society. Every assignment the Council had given them as punishment or busy work was actually a critical system that held civilization together. The aliens had not been getting rid of unwanted humans. They had been placing humans in positions of absolute strategic importance. By dawn, she had compiled enough evidence to fill a secure data vault. She encrypted everything and sent a priority message to Admiral Lim Kyung-ho aboard the exploration vessel New Seoul. Within hours, she received orders to report for an emergency briefing with humanity's senior leadership. The conference room, aboard New Seoul, was cramped but secure, shielded from any possibility of alien surveillance. Admiral Lim sat at the head of a table surrounded by the people who had been managing humanity's integration into galactic society. Ambassador Kang Dae-ho was there, along with military advisor Lee Tae-woo, chief engineer Park So-min, and a dozen other officials who had spent months enduring alien contempt. Min Seo activated the holographic display and began her presentation. "What I am about to show you will change how we understand our relationship with the Galactic Council," she said. "The assignments they gave us were not punishment details or busy work. They are the foundation systems that keep galactic civilization functioning." The hologram showed the waste processing network first. Red lines connected hundreds of worlds to the stations humanity operated, showing how toxins and contamination flowed through space to be neutralized by human-managed systems. If these stations shut down, Minseo explained, ecological disaster would spread across 40% of inhabited space within 3 months. She switched to the mining data. "The rare elements we extract are not just valuable, they are irreplaceable. Every faster-than-light drive in the galaxy requires materials that can only be found in gravitational storm zones. No other species has successfully maintained mining operations in these areas for longer than a few years." The patrol routes appeared next, showing how human ships protected trade lanes that carried 90% of inter-system commerce. "The Council called these border patrols, but we are actually defending the economic arteries of galactic civilization. Without our security presence, piracy and warfare would cut off trade between major systems." Admiral Lim leaned forward, studying the data with the eye of a career military officer. "How long have these systems been running without proper maintenance before we took over?" "The waste processing network was failing when we arrived," Minseo replied. 3 stations had already been abandoned as too dangerous to operate. The mining operations had been suspended for 5 years after the last alien crews suffered total losses. The patrol routes were being covered by automated systems that pirates had learned to avoid completely. Ambassador Kang Dae-ho was quiet for a long moment, processing the implications. "They needed us," he said finally. "The Council did not give us these assignments to keep us busy or to humiliate us. They gave them to us because they were desperate." "More than that," Minseo continued. "I researched the Morlocki that Councillor Thekmore mentioned during our first session. They were not a failure as the Council claimed. They were the previous species assigned to maintain these same critical systems, and they did not go extinct from being unable to handle the work." The room went completely silent. Minseo changed the display to show historical records she had obtained through careful intelligence gathering. The Morlocki were systematically eliminated by the Council after they began demanding better treatment and recognition for their essential work. The official records call it a species-wide plague, but the real data shows coordinated attacks on Morlocki colonies and ships. Dr. Bae Hyo-jin spoke for the first time, her voice tight with controlled anger. "They murdered an entire species to avoid admitting they were dependent on them. And now we are in the same position," Lee Tae-woo added grimly. "Essential to the galaxy's survival, but treated like expendable animals." Minseo nodded. "The pattern is clear. The Council maintains power by ensuring that no species can challenge their authority. They take the most capable newcomers and assign them to critical but dangerous work, then suppress any evidence of their importance. If the species becomes too successful or begins demanding respect, they eliminate the problem." Admiral Lim stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars that held so many civilizations depending on human labor. "So what are our options? Confront them with this evidence and risk the same fate as the Morlocki? Continue enduring their contempt while they plan our eventual destruction? There is a third option," Colonel Nam Haiwan said quietly. "What if we simply stop doing the work?" The suggestion hung in the air like a physical presence. Chief Engineer Park So-min was the first to break the silence. "You mean abandon our posts? Just walk away from everything?" "Not abandon," Nam Haiwan clarified. "Withdraw. The Council believes humans are worthless primitives who should be grateful for any assignment. If we are so worthless, they will not miss us when we leave." "But the consequences," Dr. Bae protested. Billions of beings depend on the systems we maintain. Entire worlds would suffer ecological collapse. Billions of beings who consider us animals, Li Taewu pointed out, who mock our achievements and dismiss our contributions, who plan to eliminate us when we become inconvenient. Ambassador Kang Dae-ho studied the holographic display showing humanity's integration into galactic civilization. The Morlocki tried to demand respect and were destroyed for it. Perhaps the lesson is not to demand respect at all. What do you mean? Admiral Lim asked. I mean we follow their logic to its conclusion. They believe we are primitive beasts who contribute nothing of value to galactic society. If that is true, then our absence should not matter to them at all. They should be able to maintain their civilization perfectly well without us. Min Seo understood immediately. We do not storm out in protest. We do not issue ultimatums or make demands. We simply fade away quietly, like the unimportant species they believe us to be. And when their systems start failing, Park So-min asked, then they will discover whether we were as worthless as they claimed, Kang Dae-ho replied. The discussion continued for hours as the implications of withdrawal became clear. It would not be revenge in any traditional sense. It would be a test of the Council's own beliefs about human value. If humans truly contributed nothing important to galactic society, then their departure should cause no significant problems. But if the Council was wrong, if humans had become the invisible foundation holding galactic civilization together, then their quiet withdrawal would reveal the truth in ways that no amount of arguing or evidence could accomplish. Admiral Lim called for a formal vote. All in favor of Operation Silent Dawn, the complete withdrawal of humanity from galactic society. Every hand in the room rose without hesitation. Then we begin immediately, Lim announced. We will give them exactly what they have always claimed. They wanted a galaxy without human interference. Min Seo began planning the logistics that night, creating withdrawal schedules and system shutdown procedures that would ensure human personnel could disappear gradually without triggering immediate alarms. The genius of the plan was its subtlety. Humans would not announce their departure or explain their reasons. They would simply stop showing up, like the unimportant primitives the Council believed them to be. As the meeting dispersed, Ambassador Kang Dae-ho remained behind to study the holographic display one final time. The web of connections showed humanity at the center of galactic civilization, maintaining systems that others had abandoned as impossible. Captain Kim Jin-soo walked through his waste processing station one final time, checking systems he had optimized over months of dangerous work. The massive facility hummed with mechanical precision, every component running at peak efficiency after countless hours of human maintenance and innovation. Tomorrow, the automated systems would take over for exactly 30 days before requiring intervention that would never come. Jin-soo activated the master control panel and uploaded his final program. The waste processing systems would continue, operating normally for a month, handling the toxic output of 400 worlds without any sign of problems. Long enough for the Council to notice that something had changed, but not long enough to prevent the ecological disasters that would follow. He sealed the maintenance logs and left detailed instructions for basic operations. If the aliens wanted to maintain their own systems, they would have everything they needed to understand the basics. But the advanced techniques his teams had developed, the innovative solutions that had tripled efficiency while improving safety, those would disappear with the humans who created them. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on dozens of installations. Lieutenant Commander Cho Yun-hee completed her final mining run in the Shattered Nebula, her ships extracting the last load of rare elements that would reach galactic markets for a very long time. The gravitational storm charts her pilots had created, the safety protocols that had kept human miners alive where aliens died, the equipment modifications that allowed operation in impossible conditions, all of it would vanish when the last human ship departed. Yun-hee transmitted her final reports to the Council Mining Authority, noting that all equipment was in excellent working condition and all safety systems were operational. She did not mention that the equipment required constant adjustment by skilled technicians who understood both the machinery and the unique physics of gravitational storms. The aliens would discover that gap in their knowledge soon enough. On patrol routes throughout the border zones, human ships completed their regular sweeps and reported all systems secure. Pirates had learned to avoid areas where human crews maintained vigilant security, and trade flowed safely through corridors that had been war zones before humanity arrived. But the patrol schedules filed with the Council showed only routine movements, with no indication that human tactics and coordination had created the peace the aliens took for granted. Colonel Nam Haiwan oversaw the withdrawal from her command ship, monitoring reports as human personnel rotated home on scheduled leave that would never end. The beauty of Operation Silent Dawn lay in its mundane appearance. Nothing looked unusual to alien supervisors who barely paid attention to human activities anyway. Supply runs continued on schedule, but the supplies never returned to their destinations. Maintenance crews reported for duty, then quietly transferred to ships departing for human space. Equipment was relocated for routine service that would be completed in workshops far from Council territory. Engineer Yoon Jae-sung erased his mining innovations from alien computer systems with the same methodical precision he had used to develop them. The extraction algorithms that had tripled asteroid yields, the equipment designs that had reduced energy costs by half, the safety protocols that had eliminated mining accidents, all of it disappeared from galactic databases as if it had never existed. The Council had always insisted that human contributions were worthless, so they would not miss what they never valued. If primitive techniques were unsuitable for civilized application, then civilized species would have no trouble replacing them with superior methods. Dr. Bae Hyojin was among the most careful in her withdrawal. Her medical research had saved lives across multiple species, but the Council had dismissed her work as crude and primitive. She methodically removed her cross-species compatibility data from medical databases, deleted her treatment protocols from hospital systems, and recalled her research papers from scientific archives. She left basic medical supplies and standard treatment guides, enough to handle routine injuries, but nothing that required advanced understanding of human medical innovations. If alien, doctors believed their technology was superior to human medicine. They would have no need for techniques they considered backward anyway. The withdrawal required precise timing and absolute secrecy. Admiral Lim Kyung-ho coordinated the operation from New Seoul, maintaining normal communication schedules while human ships gradually disappeared from their assigned positions. To any alien monitoring the channels, everything appeared routine. Ambassador Kang Dae-ho continued attending council sessions, submitting regular reports that showed nothing unusual. Waste processing quotas were being met. Mining operations continued on schedule. Border patrols reported no significant incidents, all normal for a species the Council considered reliable but unimportant. But intelligence analyst Oh Min-seo had done her work too well. Hidden subroutines began activating across galactic systems, quietly removing human innovations from alien technology. The advanced waste processing techniques disappeared from facility computers. Mining efficiency algorithms vanished from extraction systems. Patrol coordination software deleted itself from security networks. The Council had always claimed that human technology was primitive and worthless. Now they would have the opportunity to prove their superiority by maintaining galactic civilization, without any contamination from inferior human methods. Medical Officer Han Soo-jin made sure no non-human workers would be harmed by the transition. She treated final patients with the same care she had shown for months, leaving detailed instructions for handling common injuries and basic maintenance of medical equipment. But the advanced techniques that had saved lives other species thought impossible to preserve, those went with her when she departed. Her alien colleagues had always believed their medical technology was centuries ahead of anything humans could offer. Soon they would have the chance to demonstrate that superiority without interference from primitive human methods. The systematic erasure of human contributions continued for weeks. Trade route optimizations that had reduced shipping costs by 40% were deleted from navigation systems. Security protocols that had eliminated piracy losses disappeared from patrol databases. Efficiency improvements that had saved billions in operational costs vanished from administrative networks. Park So-min oversaw the technical aspects of the withdrawal, ensuring that no evidence remained of human innovations the Council had dismissed as worthless. If alien technology was truly superior, then removing inferior human contamination would only improve galactic systems. As human personnel completed their final shifts, they left behind facilities that would function normally for exactly 1 month. Automated systems would maintain basic operations, but the constant adjustments and improvements that had made human-managed installations exceed all expectations would stop the moment the last human departed. The Council would have 30 days to notice that their expendable human workers had stopped reporting for duty. 30 days to realize that quotas were no longer being exceeded and efficiency was no longer improving. 30 days to discover whether they could maintain their own critical systems without the primitive species they had mocked for so long. Captain Kim Jin-soo sealed the final airlock on his waste processing station and joined his crew aboard the transport that would carry them to human space. Behind him, the facility continued its vital work, cleaning the toxic output of hundreds of worlds with the mechanical precision of automated systems. In 30 days, when those systems required maintenance that would never come, the Council would learn whether human contributions had been as worthless as they claimed. Lieutenant Commander Cho Yun-hee's mining fleet departed the shattered nebula. For the last time, their holds empty and their gravitational storm charts filed away in databases that would soon be unreachable. The rare elements essential for faster-than-light travel would continue flowing to galactic markets for exactly as long as the automated systems could function without human oversight. Across the galaxy, human ships gathered at predetermined rendezvous points, their crews completing the most successful withdrawal operation in military history. They had not fought their way out or demanded recognition for their service. They had simply stopped doing work that others considered beneath notice, leaving behind systems that would demonstrate their true value through their absence. Admiral Lim stood on the bridge of New Seoul as the last human installations went dark, their automated systems beginning the month-long countdown to system-wide failure. The Council had wanted a galaxy without human interference, and now they would have exactly what they had requested. Operation Silent Dawn was complete. Humanity had left galactic civilization without a word of explanation or a demand for recognition. The aliens who had mocked them as primitive beasts would soon discover what their galaxy looked like without the foundation of human competence holding it together. In the growing darkness behind them, automated systems continued their work with mechanical precision, maintaining the illusion of normalcy for exactly as long as their human programmers had intended. Counselor Techmore burst through the doors of the Emergency Council session with his silver metal branches rattling in distress. The normally composed Velthari representative had never shown such agitation in the centuries he had served on, the governing body of galactic civilization. His metallic voice echoed through the chamber with an urgency that sent chills through the assembled alien leaders. The waste processing stations in Sector 7 have suffered complete cascade failure, he announced, his voice cracking like breaking metal. Toxic contamination is spreading to inhabited worlds at a rate we have never seen before. My home system is directly in the path of the contamination cloud. The other counselors made sounds of alarm and confusion. Zephyrian Counselor Velneth's crystal form flickered rapidly, creating discordant musical tones that indicated extreme distress. How is this possible? The human workers were exceeding all quotas just weeks ago. The processing stations were operating at peak efficiency. The humans, Techmore said, and his voice carried a strange note that none of the other counselors had heard before. When did anyone last receive a report from the human administrators? When did we last see human ships in the processing zones? A terrible silence fell over the chamber as the counselors realized they could not answer his questions. The humans had been so reliable, so consistent in their reports and operations, that their absence had gone unnoticed until the systems they maintained began to fail catastrophically. Nethys Representative Kethnul spoke in whispers that somehow filled the entire chamber. The asteroid mining operations have ceased completely across 12 sectors. Ships are stranded without fuel, unable to reach stations where the rare elements for faster-than-light drives have simply stopped arriving. Our trade vessels are trapped in systems throughout the galaxy. The Kithara high-mind Zelkar buzzed with all its voices speaking in panicked unison. Our hive colonies are reporting food shortages as supply lines collapse. The distribution networks that maintained our civilization have broken down completely. We are facing starvation across multiple worlds. More reports flooded in as each counselor connected with their home systems and discovered the scope of the disaster. The systems that humanity had maintained so efficiently were failing everywhere at once, creating cascading failures that spread through galactic civilization like a plague. "Contact the humans immediately," ordered the HFY speaker, her scaled form coiled in obvious anxiety. "Summon their ambassador. Order their workers back to their posts. This crisis requires immediate action." Frantic communications went out across every channel the Council could access. Diplomatic frequencies carried urgent requests for human assistance. Trade networks transmitted emergency appeals. Even military channels were activated to reach any human ship that might respond to their calls. The responses came back within hours, polite but devastating in their simplicity. "Humanity has withdrawn from galactic affairs. Please direct your inquiries elsewhere." Every message was identical, delivered by automated systems that provided no contact information and no explanation. As days passed, the true scope of the catastrophe became clear. The Council's own orbital stations began experiencing power fluctuations and environmental system failures. The ancient platforms that housed galactic government had been quietly maintained by human technicians who understood systems that other species had forgotten how to operate. Gravity generators became unstable, creating sections where counselors floated helplessly or were crushed by sudden increases in artificial weight. Life support systems failed unpredictably, forcing evacuations of entire sections of the government complex. The symbols of galactic authority were literally falling apart without human maintenance crews who had worked invisibly to keep them functional. Admiral Lim Kyung-ho monitored the intercepted communications from his command post aboard New Seoul, now stationed in a nebula beyond the galaxy's edge. The desperate messages from the Council grew more frantic with each passing day as they began to understand the true extent of their dependence on the species they had dismissed as primitive beasts. "They are offering to double our pay," reported Communications Officer Yu Hee-jin, listening to the latest transmission from Council space. "Triple our assigned quotas of food and supplies. They promise better working conditions and formal recognition of human contributions to galactic society." "Any mention of an apology?" asked Ambassador Kang Dae-ho. "None. They still refer to us as a problematic species that must be brought back into compliance with Council directives." The reports from their former territory painted a picture of accelerating collapse. Without human expertise, the aliens were discovering that many of their most advanced systems were actually dependent on technologies they no longer understood. Centuries of relying on others to maintain critical infrastructure had left them helpless when those others simply stopped showing up for work. Intelligence analyst Oh Min-seo presented her latest assessment to the human leadership. The contamination from failed waste processing is spreading faster than they can contain. 14 worlds have been evacuated already, and the toxic clouds are moving toward major population centers. They are facing the worst ecological disaster in recorded galactic history. "The mining situation is even worse," added Captain Kim Jin-soo, who had been monitoring communications from the shattered nebula. "They sent 3 alien crews to restart the extraction operations. All 3 expeditions were lost to gravitational storms within days. They have no understanding of the techniques we developed to work safely in those conditions." The cascade continued as each failed system triggered failures in others. Trade routes that had operated for millennia were cut off as ships ran out of fuel. Worlds that had never produced their own food faced starvation as agricultural shipments stopped arriving. Industrial centers shut down as essential materials became unavailable. Dr. Bae Hyo-jin received the most desperate messages as alien medical facilities struggled with emergencies they could not treat. "They are asking for our medical protocols and research data," she reported. "Hospital administrators are admitting that human techniques were more effective than their own advanced medicine. They want us to return and train their doctors in human methods. Methods they called crude and primitive just weeks ago," Colonel Nam Hae-won observed. The final blow came when Oh Min-seo's deepest infiltration programs activated, systematically removing all traces of human innovation from galactic databases. The efficiency improvements that had saved billions in costs vanished from administrative systems. The safety protocols that had prevented countless accidents were deleted from operational manuals. The technical specifications that had allowed alien equipment to function at peak performance simply disappeared. "They are trying to recreate our innovations from memory," reported engineer Yoon Jae-sung, monitoring their attempts to restart failed systems. "But they never understood the underlying principles. They just followed our procedures without learning why they worked. Now they cannot duplicate what they never truly comprehended. 6 months after humanity's silent departure, Captain Kim, Jinsu led a small exploration fleet toward a distant galaxy cluster that long-range sensors had identified as suitable for colonization. Behind them, the Milky Way continued its slow collapse as alien civilizations struggled to maintain technologies they had never bothered to understand. The final reports reaching their communication arrays told of governments falling as ecological. Disasters and economic collapse destroyed the foundations of galactic society. The Council itself had been evacuated from their orbital platforms after life support systems failed catastrophically. The symbols of alien authority were empty shells drifting in space, abandoned by the species that had once ruled the galaxy. Dr. Bae Hyo-jin established the first research laboratory in their new home, her medical team finally free to pursue science, without condescension or dismissal. Her xenobiology research would help humanity understand any species they might encounter in their new galaxy, but more importantly, it would help them recognize the difference between partners and masters. Colonel Nam Hai-wan oversaw construction of defensive installations around their new worlds, not because they expected pursuit from their former galaxy, but because they had learned the importance of being prepared for species that might mistake competence for weakness. Ambassador Kang Dae-ho made the final entry in humanity's official diplomatic log. We came to the Galactic Council seeking partnership and found only contempt. We offered our skills and received only mockery. We provided essential services and were treated like expendable animals. The Council believed they needed our labor but not our respect. They were wrong about what they needed and wrong about what we would accept. He paused, looking out at the stars of their new home where human ships were already beginning to explore and settle worlds that would know humanity as explorers and builders rather than servants. The Council mocked us until we left without a word. Now they understand the true cost of their contempt. Civilizations that cannot value competence will not long survive without it. We leave them to face the consequences of their prejudice while we build something better among distant stars.